Have you ever asked yourself the question, is the death penalty ethical or not? The death penalty is a harsh topic, but there's so much to be learned from it. You can create your own viewpoint as an American citizen to decide where you stand on this matter. It might not affect you directly, but in the future, it will always be important to have strong beliefs in topics like these. I find this topic interesting and have found myself asking many questions related to it. As I see more headlining news articles surrounding the death penalty, I found myself asking what the death penalty really is and if it is morally right or not. I am here today to encourage you that the death penalty is moral, effective, and provides justice for victims involved. Law enforcement and government officials have been using this tactic for many years. Though it has been reinstated and questioned a couple of times, the morality of it can be proved. Effectiveness of this method is proved in multiple court cases throughout the U.S., and for victims that never got a chance, justice is served. Now that you have an overview of the points of persuasion today, I want to start with moral examples of why the death penalty should be used. A common argument made when it comes to the death penalty is that it is not humane or constitutionally right. According to Roger Hood, a raving journalist from Encyclopedia Britannica, the death penalty conveys a moral message, not only to the victims related, but also to other law-abiding citizens. For the most heinous crimes, the death penalty should be used, and it is argued that for lesser crimes, it is inhumane to use this method. A moral reasoning for the death penalty is that when someone has taken another person's life, they have lost their right to life as well. The Margulis Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University, a well-known and accredited university center, moral reasoning for the death penalty is simply to protect other citizens from future crimes. It is in the best interest of others that horrible crimes are put to an end and can be monitored to death before death behind bars. In one specific line of this article, it is said, "Only by putting murderers to death can society ensure that convicted killers do not kill again." In relation to putting murderers to death, it is a fact, according to Steve Smith, an accredited reporter for the PRI, that in California, an overwhelming majority of violent inmates will be eligible for parole, hearing, and potential release. This is a record number of releases, and it is putting society at risk for reoccurring violent crimes. Now that we can identify the need and moral reasoning of the death penalty, we can move on to the solution. According to procon.org from Britannica, it is shown that because criminals are put on death row, it deters repeat offense from these criminals. Though it does do the same when you are given life in prison, the death penalty is effective to extinguish any possibility of a criminal that has been convicted of heinous things to do them again. From the Death Penalty Information Center, an accredited source that was created to give out information regarding the death penalty, the death penalty is more expensive than imprisonment for life. Because of this, there are some pushbacks from some states to carry out this method. When adding in all the cost of prison confinement, food, electricity, water, etc., it is clear that the costs are more similar than the government gives off. Even though there have been some arguments over the death penalty regarding cost, constitutional beliefs, and if the method is effective or not, we can clearly see that the pros outweigh the cons. Though cost can be more depending on the method carried out for the death penalty, putting an end to those that have affected our communities the most is of utmost importance. Constitutionally, the Supreme Court ruled that the death penalty was not violating any constitutional rights of a person if they have murdered someone else. Most of the time, it is up to the states to decide if they will give out this maximum punishment or not. Given the information on the effectiveness of the death penalty, we can see how important it is to our communities to use this extreme method. We can now look forward to seeing how the death penalty is used to very important for the justice and victims of families. The positive effects of the death penalty are simple: justice and bringing an end to heinous crimes being committed within the U.S. From Procon.org, Phyllis Loya, the mother of police officer Larry Lasauter, who was killed in the line of duty, states, "I will live to see the execution of my son's murderer. People need closure. And I think it means different things to different people. What it would mean for me is that my fight for justice for my son would be complete." From this quote, we can see that people need closure for their loved ones and justice for their victims. It provides peace and clarity in a time of trauma. The negative consequence of inaction to the death penalty can mean many things. In worst case scenario, it can mean a repeat of offensive crimes committed. According to Procon.org from Britannica, Kenneth Allen McDuff was sentenced to death in 1966 for the murder of 3 teenagers and raping of 1. At this time, the U.S. Supreme Court invalidated the death penalty nationwide in 1972, causing a reduced sentence. And McDuff was released on parole in 1989. Around 3 days later, he was arrested and sentenced to death for the second time after torturing, raping, and murdering at least 6 women in Texas. This is just one of many examples of repeat offenses caused by felons released from prison. In conclusion, we have seen and can understand that the death penalty is a necessary action for those that commit the most unthinkable murders and crimes. From what we've learned, the death penalty is moral, effective, and seeks justice for victims and their families. There is a need for order and, more importantly, to put an end to those that harm our communities the most. The moral message that is given and shows the families and other law-abiding citizens that these criminals are being taken care of so they cannot further affect us and our communities. The death penalty is effective in putting criminals away and justice is served by providing closure to families and victims in time of despair. Because of these facts and research given, I encourage you as a society to form a fair and honest opinion. In this day and age, we can make a difference by making our voices heard and voting for those in power to make decisions that best interest our families and our communities. What will your stance be as a citizen of this country, and will you stand for justice for those that have been affected by these criminals?